Hi everyone, I am Amy from the Singapore Art Museum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's session, all about mycology. This program is organized by the Singapore Art Museum and is part of our exhibition, Refuse, which is currently showing at our new space at Tanjong Pagar Distripark. This evening, I'm very pleased to introduce to you our three speakers. We have with us Yeng from Mushroom Spotters, Dr. Amy Choong from the Department of Biological Sciences at the National University of Singapore, and 𝗙𝗕𝗢𝗏𝗏 from Bewilder. Thank you all for joining us. Moderating the session, we have our SAM curators, Joella and Teng 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦. Over to you guys.
Thank you to our three speakers and to everyone tuning in for joining us this evening. My name is Yen-Hui, and together with my colleague Joella, we will be your moderators for this panel. So perhaps let us start by introducing our three speakers a little bit more. First up, we have Yeng with us. Yeng is the founder of Mushroom Spotters Singapore. It's a Facebook group created in 2016 as an avenue for mushroom enthusiasts to post, share information, and really discuss all things fungi. This group has grown rapidly since the start of the pandemic, with many members like Yeng herself spending weekends walking in Singapore's green spaces in search of uncommon and colorful fungi, many of which are then shared on this platform. Next, we have Dr. Amy Chung, a senior lecturer in the Department of Biological Sciences at the National University of Singapore. Amy's teaching and outreach efforts tap on her knowledge of fungal biology, plant growth, biomechanics, sustainability, and waste management, to name a few. And through these various avenues, she hopes to impart greater interest in and appreciation for our planet Earth. Amy, as you can see, is also the wearer and owner of one of the coolest mushroom print shirts I have seen. Last but not least, we have 𝗙𝗕𝗢𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Kiat is a self-taught mycologist with over a decade of mushroom growing experience. He is also the founder of Bewilder, a mycological design studio based in Singapore that explores the intersections of art, design, and science through fungal expressions. Kiat is also one of the key collaborators of Refuse, the intermedia exhibition that tonight's event is being produced in accompaniment to. Over the course of this conversation, we'll be delving into the wonderful world of fungi, discussing the burgeoning public interest in them, and also the intersections between art and biology. Members of the audience are free and encouraged to post any questions that they may have for the speakers using Zoom's Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We will be taking questions whenever we can and also whenever appropriate throughout the talk, and then also towards the end of the session. So let's begin. To the speakers, each of you approached the fungi kingdom from many different perspectives. And so to kick things off, we thought it would be quite lovely to hear from each of you about the work that you do with fungi, whether professionally or otherwise, and how your individual forays into this world began.
Okay, I guess maybe shall I start first? I have the, I'm Yeng, and I think I have the least professional association with fungi. As for myself, actually, I started taking pictures of mushrooms because I happen to live in an area which is quite close to some jungles, and it's quite damp, and you see mushrooms sprouting every now and then. So obviously, I was taking photos of them, posting them on Facebook, and starting to say, am I starting to look like a weirdo amongst my friends? And wondering also whether there are other people who are doing that. So I tried to search for a group about fungi, about mycology that is based in Singapore, and I couldn't find any. So I was quite surprised. I mean, if you are interested in nature, you will know that there's Nature Society, there are bird watching groups on Facebook. But yeah, I just wasn't able to find one for fungi. And I thought, okay, why not? I'll just start one. And then I added all my friends inside. And you could actually, within the next couple of days, quite a number of them dropped out. So that was really funny. Not everybody is that interested in fungi like myself. I have to say it is like one of my many interests, but it is one that I've seen quite interesting organic growth over the years. This group is less than 5 years old, about 5 years old. And I think also because of COVID, people have less opportunities to travel, spending a lot of time exploring the backyards of Singapore, doing a lot of hiking, and they've managed to find this group somehow. And we now have over 4,500 members in this group, and every day we have people posting pictures of photos of mushrooms. We try to make it very accessible to all. We accept pictures from anyone. We don't judge you because your photos of mushrooms is less artistic than others. We do want to see as many photos taken by the community. I think more for two reasons. Also for research in terms of understanding what types of fungi we have here, and also I guess for people to actually appreciate that there are many different types of mushrooms out there, and not just the big white ones that you see quite commonly after the rain showers on the mulch for the plants that are planted by end parks. So, okay, I think that's quite a bit that I've done. Over to the rest of you two, please.
Okay, I guess I'll go next according to surnames. Okay, so my background, well, I studied mushrooms when I was an undergrad in the NUS. Then I actually wanted to continue with my honors with a mycologist. His name was 𝗙𝗚𝗡𝗏. Then after that, when I went to speak to him, then he said, "Oh, I'm leaving NUS." Then I said, "Oh no, you know." So then I had to look for other projects. So my path deviated from mushroom from then on until I joined NUS again, and then I started to teach the module. And so I can see also some of my ex-students and current students in the attendee list. Yeah, so from there, I read up a lot. I learned also from Serena, from mycologists around the region as well as overseas. So sometimes, actually very often, I'll be asking them questions like, what is this? You know, because microfungi are very difficult to identify, very, very small things in the microscope. So it's don't even know how to start. Then with time, I got more familiar. So yeah, so got more different types of projects. So currently we have students looking at biomaterials, trying to see whether we can use mushroom to replace cardboard, trying to see whether mushrooms can break down plastics, also trying to understand their symbiotic relationships with plants, yeah, different areas. Yeah, so over to you, Kiat.
Thanks, Dr. Choong. Thanks for having me. I think when I was growing up, I've always been into nature. So I've always been growing plants. Like I kill a lot of plants, and maybe a bit guilty, like, you know, kill too many things, then want to explore other stuff, right? No, like, basically I get bored very easily. So somehow I got involved with mushrooms through a social enterprise I was working for. So then I was doing the R&D for them, and we started fruiting some gourmet mushrooms to sell. And after that, I left and I started Bewilder. But I had to take a little bit of a break from mushrooms. I think it was a bit too intense at that time. Yeah, then I think it was when I really started Bewilder that I saw all the different opportunities that you can do with mushrooms coming to life. And that really got me excited, but also got me very tired because it's a lot of work. And as a one-man show, right, for a while, it's a bit trying. Yeah, but basically, I think like mushrooms are just super interesting. I'm always learning something new like every week. And now I have a small team, so the team also gets very excited when we make like little discoveries here and there. So I think like with Dr. Choong, I think we do quite similar stuff. So we also work with micromaterials. We actually explore quite a lot with native species now. And we also do, so we found this this fungus that was growing on a beetle, and we managed to isolate it. And now we have a mycopesticide, a native species of a Metarhizium, a native strain of Metarhizium, and we've tested it on a few different families of insects and seems to be quite broad-based and pretty effective. So, yay! And of course, mushrooms is like when people talk about mushrooms, it's always about food or medicine, right? But I think in Singapore, as a whole, it's really quite a mycophobic country. Like Yen, I think when you take photos of mushrooms, I think you might have faced similar situations, right? Where, like, I know after heavy rainfalls, the mushrooms pop up, and I'll be that guy like taking photos, pruning out the grass and taking photos, and somebody will come and say, "Hey, boy, don't touch, some poisonous." Yeah, so I think there's a lot to be done in terms of education, because there's also a lot of mushrooms that are not poisonous, right? Yeah, but yeah, basically the kingdom of fungi is massive and just super interesting. I'm learning new things all the time. So the deeper you dig, the more you fall into this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, thanks so much to the three of you for sharing. It's so interesting to hear how fungi has been such effective and like teachers also for all of you at different points in your life. And I'm wondering whether or not, because we are joined today by so many different audiences who might come into fungi and an interest in it from different angles as well, whether you might be able to perhaps break down the term mycology for us in your, with your own perspective and what it means to you. It might sometimes strike, as being quite a large or confusing term, but I was wondering if I could open it up to the three of you, how you would perhaps explain what mycology is in a few words or a few sentences, and what, that also means for you at this point. And perhaps, depending on who would like to take this question first, please feel free to jump in.
Am I going to speak first again? Like I have to admit again, I'm not an expert in fungi. My understanding of what mycology is that it is the study of fungi, and the people who do that are usually academics or people who are involved in somehow mycology research groups. I'm sure, Amy and Kiat fit the bill. I don't think I fit the bill of a mycologist in that way. So maybe, that's my take of mycology.
Well, mycology, if you break down the word, is myco, then logy, so it's the scientific study of mushrooms. So that's about it. But then if you want to look at how to study mushrooms, mushrooms got so many species, right? So there are various ways of studying them. Either you can study macrofungi, that means those that you can see with your eyes without microscope. And then there are the microfungi, which you definitely need microscope. And then you can study the biology, whether how they grow, what they feed on. Then you can also look at the medical use, whether they can be, whether they produce any bioactive compounds for human use. Because the first antibiotic penicillin was actually from the fungus Penicillium. It's actually a microfungus. So that was discovered actually quite accidentally, but then because of that discovery, the World War was won by the Allied forces, right? Rather than they were losing, right? But because of antibiotics, the soldiers can recover. So actually that fungus actually changed the course of history. Then also you can look at it through applications like using the physical property of the fungus to make things, right? Make leather, make packaging, all sorts of things. Then you can also study how they interact with other organisms, be it plants, or be it like pesticide. The plant part, that part is actually very important, because now we use a lot of fertilizer to grow food, right? Fertilizer use is actually not sustainable. But if we can use fungi as a fertilizer, then it can perpetuate by itself, and it's also environmentally friendly. So this is an area that really require active research. Yeah, I think I spoken enough. Okay, over to you, Kiat.
Thanks. I think everyone kind of like answered the question of what mycology is really. Basically, it's a study of fungi. I think it's interesting that there are more and more citizen scientists popping up like mushrooms in Singapore as well. Like now with the Facebook group, right? Everyone is posting photos and everyone is kind of like learning to identify them and no longer being so afraid of these amazing organisms. But yeah, I think Dr. Amy, you mentioned that there are many tracks that that you can actually explore when it comes to the study of these organisms. For Bewilder, we pretty much touch on a little bit of everything. So we do our own, we develop our own strains. We touch on mycopesticides, moving quite big into mycomaterials now. So biomaterials made of mycelium, and slowly moving into mycoremediation as well. So I think along the same same thought as you lah. Basically, I think we should all kind of do good for Earth, and what better tool than mushrooms, right? Like kind of connects everything together. And the only reason why we are right here now having this conversation is because of mushrooms. So it's good that it should be celebrated, and no longer underrepresented and undervalued. I think people are starting to come to an understanding that mushrooms play a very important role, not just in decomposition, but actually connecting things together. It's like the glue, right? The mycelium is like the glue that joins things together. So yeah, for me that's kind of profound, like when you are able to allow an organism or organisms to show you that we are all interconnected, then really I think there'll be a lot less harm done to Earth, because why would I harm my neighbor, right? But humans are quite stupid. We still continue doing that.
Yeah, it's thank you for your responses. Amy, in your earlier response, you spoke a bit about the different applications of mushrooms and fungi, and then also in the work that Kiat and Bewilder does, for example, even the creation of musical instruments that were made from mycelium in the refuse exhibition. So it now feels like a good opportunity to maybe speak a bit more about the application of mycelium beyond its natural environment. So during the course of this presentation and also research around this subject, Joella and I have been quite delighted to realize the versatility of this material, of its use in a diverse range of ways, from mycelium leather to eco-friendly building materials. And today we even realized that there's a canoe that's been built entirely from mycelium. So personally, what are each of you most excited about when thinking about the possibilities that fungi might afford us?
Okay, so I think the most important part or most important challenge that we face right now is climate change, right? And then food security. I think when people talk about nature-based solutions, they never actually consider fungi. So it is something that deserves to be looked at in more detail, because below ground there's actually a lot of mycelium, and most of the time you don't see them is because they are below ground. And when the condition is right, when it rains and the temperature is right, then you see mushrooms popping out, but actually they are below ground all the time. And all these living mycelium, they are actually storing a lot of carbon. So there's a lot of carbon that can be sequestered or locked away. So imagine if you grow the mushroom, grow until very big, right? Then after that you kill it. Then after that, the carbon is all locked up. You can make into furniture, you can do all sorts of things, and the carbon is stuck inside there, right? So you can actually reduce a lot of carbon from the air. So, and they grow quite fast, actually, depending on species. So we can actually sequester carbon very quickly. So it's something that really should be looked at with a lot of time and resources and investment. Yeah.
It's all about the money.
Yeah, money, lab space, people.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm most excited about the future lah. Like, I don't want to go to Mars. I think we need to fix the problems here on Earth. But fungi represent this almost an urgency. Like it's popping up now. Everyone is paying a lot of attention. There's a lot of attention to it. It's a hot topic, right? Everyone wants to be involved in mycelium in some way or another, and it's because it's just very exciting. Like we are starting to unlock many things that we can do with mushrooms. But I was having this conversation with Phil Ross from MycoWorks, and he mentioned that actually, like, mushrooms are very ancient, right? They are so much older than us. I think we have forgotten the ways of the world, you know, and mushrooms are kind of like surfacing now, fruiting now. On the proverbial surface to kind of just give us a warning as well, that we have to not just look at the situation, but to actually act on it in our own little ways lah. And it so happens that mushrooms there are just so many applications, real world applications that we can employ to help better the world lah. Yeah, so even, you know, there's so many things we haven't even tapped into yet, like just basic farming. You know, everyone is very into mushrooms now. They want to eat mushrooms, right? But how many mushroom farms are there in Singapore? But there's just the indoor farming. There's also outdoor farming, right? And maybe it's a way for us to really just take a step back. I think it's like we need to take a step back and stop like being so full of ourselves. Yeah, that's why mushrooms are great, right? They can kind of put you in your place.
Okay, yeah, I thought I needed some time to think about this because it's not what I normally consider. But I think Kiat also said something quite interesting, and that reminded me. I think maybe a lot of us are here also because of this film on Netflix called Fantastic Fungi. So I think that sort of propelled, you know, fungi to general common awareness and knowledge and interest. And one of the main proponent of fungi and their uses in that documentary was Paul Stamets, and I recall he has patented some inventions relating to pesticides using fungi, and Kiat just said that he's also found a Singapore version of it. So that was something I was actually quite interested into, because my background actually is in patenting also. So if Kiat, you want to patent something, come and talk to me. Then also this is also something that appears on Facebook every now and then. There's this like mushroom coffin. So you know, people who are very much in tune with the world and kind of want to return to the world in a natural way as much as possible. So now there's this option for you to be buried in, I think, if I'm understanding correctly, probably is a mycelium-based case. But yeah, I don't know how the mushroom is going to decompose a human. I guess there are. I mean, athlete's food is fungus also. So yeah, there are many applications. Of course, yeah, mycofabrics, textiles. That's what I've heard about. I was also speaking to someone who was doing myco-textile previously, so that was really interesting. And mushroom cultivation. Also, again, because of Mushroom Spotter Singapore, I got to know someone who is doing development of urban farming or high-tech farming, basically, more of high-tech farming rather than urban farming in Singapore. So I think one of the things I want to say is, yeah, this group has actually connected me with a lot of people with similar interests, sometimes not directly related to mushrooms, but yeah, I guess, once you open one door, it leads to many others. And yeah, there's lots to learn from mushroom. Oh yeah, one more thing. I think we are also at the some countries are at the cusp of using mushrooms to treat depression, right? So I'm actually very excited about that. And the way they've described it is that the patient more or less is reset because of taking the mushrooms. And so I guess there's some kind of circular thought process or something happening to the brain that causes the depression and doesn't allow the person to get out of it. And then by taking these still being tested mushroom treatments, they seem to snap out of it faster. So yeah, at least for me, I'm not personally involved in any of the research, but from what I see and from all the other groups that I subscribe to, there are lots of interesting research going on, and I'm sure that there's going to be more that will occur over the next couple of years. Yeah, with money and time involved.
Yeah, I think thanks so much for all of the responses. There are a couple of questions coming in that I think respond to some of these things that have been brought up. And one of the questions reads, what do you think some of the biggest challenges in adopting mushroom-based solutions on a larger scale are? And this is asked also by a couple of people also in relation to things that the three of you have mentioned in one way or another. This could be with regard to textiles. This could be with regard to the use of fungi in terms of fertilizers as well, or also even mycoremediation. So I was wondering whether what your thoughts were with regard to this, and perhaps also in response to some of the questions we can receive.
With regards to the packaging material, innovative, or now they are called mushroom packaging. They can do it over there because they have the farm waste. Here, we have to look at our own farm waste, different types of origin. But the other thing is, over in I guess in North America, is the humidity is lower, whereas here year-round humidity is high. So when you have a mushroom packaging, you will have insects that will feed on the mycelium. So that's a challenge. So there need to be some kind of protective material that prevent the insects from eating the packaging material. Yeah. So that's a challenge, and also space to grow that big mycelium time. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Amy, I think you mentioned something about the applying a protective layer over the mycelium, right? I think that's very funny because we kind of went through this whole loop. We were trying to create a sustainable packaging material or a styrofoam replacement that should actually break down over time. But that's the whole purpose, right? But then when we do it, someone will ask, but can last or not? Can last how long? So I think we have to change people's mindsets first. Like everyone wants a piece of it, but they don't even understand it, and it's quite disheartening because then I have to explain but this is the reason why we are doing it. The whole point of this is that it breaks down in a harmless fashion, that we don't have to apply another layer over it to protect it from breaking down. So if that's the case, right, then maybe mycelium isn't the answer. Maybe we should use something else. Yeah. But yeah,
I guess what they're saying is break down at the correct time. It must reach the customer intact. Then after that, then break down.
Yeah, but I think that can be answered just actually from the processors involved, But like you mentioned, it really depends on where we are as well. In Singapore, the humidity and the heat is just way too high. So I think I spoke to somebody and he had this sample pack from North America, and they had all these different micro materials, and he kept it in a box. And after a month, he opened it up and everything was just moldy. So yeah, so that has also been our experience. We've experienced this before quite a few times. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is finding the right people to buy these products, because at the end of the day, even if we can produce at scale styrofoam replacement, it's still going to be more expensive than styrofoam, and people are still going to pay for something that's cheaper here, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, green materials actually are more expensive, but that should be the true cost, true price, because currently we are not actually paying the true price of a lot of things. You know, the environmental cost of it is paid for by the environment, but eventually the environment will not be able to take it anymore. Then it will end up be our cost. You know, the cost can be monetary, can be our health, yeah, it can be all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to pay the price really.
Yes.
Yeah. What should I say? I don't know. I think there was only one thing that caught my attention before, is that there were also people. Of course, bio solutions are very hyped at the moment, and I think it looks like people get overexcited about it, and again forget that they are biomaterials. They will break down faster compared to the current solutions. So I thought the one that caught my attention was mycelium-based brakes. Then I always thought, buildings are supposed to last for a long time, and if you have brakes that are made of mycelium, how long are they actually going to last? I know there were a lot of good points about those brakes. They say that they were much lighter. They could take like quite a lot more pressure force or something like that. But I think, if people understood what these biomaterials or biosolutions could do, but also their shortcomings, then they could be more accepting of it. And of course, I think cost is like what Amy and 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗏 have said, is the big concern. They are actually more expensive than the current solutions. And I'm not a how should I say? I don't think plastics are all that bad. Again, it's something that is very useful. They do serve a purpose. They let a lot of things. They prevent things from getting perished much faster, like one of these reasons. So I think education is definitely one of the ways to ensure that plastics don't end up in places that we don't want them to. So it's a long process. Switching to bio solutions is definitely one of them. But even if commercially, if they are not going to be adopted wholesale, then the generations after us should actually know how to manage and how to handle use of plastics at the same time with biosolutions alternatives.
Yeah, thanks so much for all of the responses. I think I wanted to also then shift gears and perhaps bring us back to one of the terms that get used earlier in terms of like citizen scientists as well. And maybe this also then brings us to perhaps talking about the Mushroom Spotters Facebook page in greater detail. Because I mean, whilst also preparing for this, we were also scrolling through the page itself, and I think after encountering it for so long, I realized I'd never read the introduction on the page itself. And it actually reads, for those who are not as familiar also, it reads a casual gathering of mycophiles from Singapore. And I was thinking about it, and also it struck me that amateurism is often dismissed. And when I was Googling, the etymology of the word amateur, one of the top search results is the term amateur an insult? But if anything, though, I do feel like the Mushroom Spotters Singapore Facebook group shows that the casual gathering has become quite a dynamic community, and it seems that its love of fungi has really embraced mycophiles from all walks of life, with information posted in the group even leading to research done by the Singapore Botanic Gardens. So I was wondering, from the three of y'all's perspective, what is it about fungi that fascinates and even endears a casual audience? And what do you think or feel that has done for a larger, more everyday understanding of fungi's place within our ecosystem and society?
Okay. I'll make it short. Yeah, the description of the group is really to not deter people from joining. Really from kids with a handphone and internet connection to uncles and aunties who might not even understand the term mycology. So I think it has worked. I think we see a lot of people joining. We see people from overseas joining. So usually the people from overseas who join the group have some knowledge about fungi themselves, and they actually help with identifying of the photos that are posted there. We try to keep the discussion very simple, very straightforward. Of course, I think 50% of the questions are, is this edible? And I cannot answer that all the time. I do have some basic understanding of fungi. I already have many books of fungi received as presents. Somehow now that's the default presents that I receive for Christmas. I guess it's the same for you, Kiat, and maybe Amy. So I have spent some time understanding fungi, and I know which are the ones that could be eaten here in Singapore. But I think one of the things maybe I think we should talk about here also is it is not allowed to collect specimens on state land, including parks and nature reserves. So please, anyone out there who is thinking of having a career in foraging, you're not going to make it here in Singapore. Another thing is, what else do I want to say? Yeah. So I've, when I was younger, I volunteered at NUS. I've helped people doing their masters with their projects, and I'm actually really happy that because of this group, I got to know Amy, I got to know Serena from NParks. So I think Amy will explain a little bit more about the book that they are working on at the moment. But I've also I've been included in as one of the people that are allowed to collect and harvest specimens in Singapore to help with documentation of mushrooms. Of course, I think I can collect other types of plants or even animals, but because of the time I spend on Mushroom Spotters SG, I'm a lot more aware of what are the unusual mushrooms, the less common ones, and I collect them and provide them to the Singapore Botanic Gardens so that they can be kept in the herbarium. So I'm quite happy to be part of this effort that I think a couple of us from the Singapore Facebook group, Mushroom Facebook group, are also involved in doing. So, okay, I think I've talked too much again. Continue, please.
Serena and I are writing the book. So I'm doing the first half and she's doing the latter half, and then another part about identification. Yeah, so it's being written. So it's not ready yet. So it's gonna cover the macro fungi as well as the slime molds. Then I'm writing the biology part of mushrooms. So yeah, akan datang, but not yet.
Hey, I also was involved in the glossary. I claimed some efforts in the book. Please put my name inside.
I think there are quite a few questions also coming in from people with regard to the sort of resources maybe they might be able to use or access. In the meantime, while waiting for this book by Dr. Amy and Serena as well, what sort of resources, in terms of apps, maybe books or maybe some websites you would recommend people hit to find out more about fungi, but also to maybe learn a little bit more about how they might be able to approach and the study of it, or also maybe help them with identifying some of these strains that they come across on their nature walks?
For mushrooms, it's not that easy to identify just by its appearance, because some of them can look very similar. So you need to look at it under the microscope, look at the spores, look at the gills, look at the pores, look at all the different structures, the different types of hyphae, then different reactions to stains. So yeah, but if someone is very, very familiar and have collected that particular mushroom from that particular spot before, then, and if it's identified correctly, then next time when you show the picture, and it's collected from that spot, then that person can confidently tell you that this is the identity, right? But yeah, in general, it's not so easy to just look from a picture and say, hey, this is, what, yeah. Some can, but not all, yeah. So at the end of the day, you still need microscope. But, don't be too discouraged just because you don't have a microscope. You can still enjoy the learning. There are a lot of books out there, not necessarily Singapore mushrooms, but you can look at Malaysia, Thailand, Southeast Asia, even Australia, Indian books, Japanese, Taiwanese. Some of their mushrooms we also have in Singapore. So yeah, you can just refer to those. At least first by picture, then after that, when you're more advanced or when you can afford a microscope, then you can go deeper. Yeah. So yeah, there are lots of different ways of doing this, and you can also try taking a picture and then do Google search. Not so well for mushrooms, better for plants, but yeah, can try. And also you can tap the Mushroom Spotter SG, the resource group down there. Just take a picture and then ask. Yeah.
So now that we're on the topic of information and knowledge sharing, I thought maybe we could take a step back from that for a bit. So Kiat spoke earlier on this sentiment of a general culture of mycophobia for various reasons, maybe due to the fear of not knowing how to identify poisonous mushrooms. And then earlier we've also spoken about the need for education to kind of shift mindsets, the ways that perhaps in Singapore the people can enjoy and also appreciate mushrooms respectfully. There is the following question from the audience, and it goes: as much as interest in fungi is growing, education of fungi in Singapore is still rather basic, especially compared to animals and plants. What are the speakers' views on education of fungi in Singapore, and also how do you think it can be better enhanced?
Wait, let me quickly jump in. Sorry. I think when they were asking about apps, so there is this NUS biodiversity website, right? I thought, Amy, it's your students updating the website for fungi?
No.
Oh, okay.
My mom is in the audience also. My mom,
okay.
she updated. She was the first to post. Yeah.
Right.
And subsequently, I don't think anyone updated.
Okay. Would that be a useful resource then?
Once we get the name correct, yeah, that can be useful.
Yeah, so I guess to plug that, the NUS biodiversity website does have pictures and some identification that you could rely on if it's not complete. And in fact, that's what Amy and Serena is doing. So I think their original intention is to come up with a identification guide for Singapore mushrooms, right? It might have a slight change in direction depending on NPARKs. So I'm not really involved in that. So I think fingers crossed for the book to come out. Yeah, because the short answer is there is no definitive guide here in Singapore yet. So we are all struggling, or at least I'm struggling. I'm always referring to Amy or Serena for help. They've relied on earlier texts or keys that one of them was written in what 1950s or 1960s, the corner book, if I'm not wrong. So it's time for an updated one. And as for me, because I consider myself an amateur, I've Googled. So I've actually, if I was looking for edible fungi in Singapore because I was interested, I wanted to know. But when I Google edible fungi in Malaysia, actually that you could find some post about it or some guides about it. I guess, yeah, maybe Singapore didn't present it. There wasn't an opportunity to develop something like that, but in neighboring countries, some of the guides could be referred to. Then again, if you really needed to know exactly what something is, Amy as well as Serena will be able to help when, as and when they are free. Sorry again to interrupt.
Sorry, what was the question again? I lost it.
So the question was, what are your views on education of fungi in Singapore, and how do you think it can be enhanced?
Okay, this thing about education about fungus or fungi or fungi is actually a very sad state. It's not only in Singapore, it's worldwide. If you Google mycology undergraduate course, you basically like cannot find, right? Here in NUS, at least I teach it, but I teach it as fungal biology. As for others, they are subsumed under microbiology or some biotech course, right? There's no proper singular mycology course. Just like botany is dying, it's also a course that's absent in a lot of universities now. And yet these are two major groups of organisms that are key to our survival. One is photosynthesis, right? Giving us oxygen, without whom, we will be gone for sure within like minutes or hours. Then the other one is, mushrooms' role is like so many things: decomposition, medical compounds, other bioactive compounds, fertilizers. So they are very, very important. They are supporting land plants. The reason why plants can move on land, as in move from aquatic environment to land, is because of fungi, right? So without them, the course of evolution will be so different. So they are very, very important. And yet, these two fields of knowledge are not being taught, and that leads to plant blindness and fungus blindness. So at least with, thanks to Paul Stamets, he's a very good salesman for mushrooms. So there's a lot of interest right now, but whether that will translate to academia, that's another thing. And then in primary school in Singapore, at least they touch on mushrooms, but secondary school no more, right? Then A-level maybe cover a bit of yeast, but that's about it. Then university, if they don't touch anything on, like my module, for instance, then also zero. So it's a very, very sad state of affair. Yeah, but in general, most people are attracted to animals. It's very normal, but for the sake of animals, we need plants, we need fungus. Y'all want to add anything else?
I guess the group helps, yeah, when I first started the group, some of my friends did like approach me personally. Oh, I've seen this mushroom is red. Oh, 有毒. That's like the first thing they say. Like almost, I guess, I mean, it makes sense, people want to be slightly wary of things that occur in the wild. But I don't know. I think I never really have an interest in trying to eat something from the roadside. So I mean, also, I think one thing you want to know, I think most of you would like to know is you're not poisoned usually by touching a mushroom. There's almost no mushrooms that will poison you that way. I think just one that occurs in Singapore that is suspect of poisoning by touch. So you can go around and touch them. Don't worry. Don't bring them home to eat them, because you are not, usually most of us are not educated in terms of identifying mushrooms, which I think which is very interesting, because when I speak with my friends overseas, I have a friend from Russia. She would tell me when she was much younger, she would forage. That is something that they do, and it's a knowledge that Singaporeans don't have. Some Eastern European people will have. My husband is from UK, and he says that people in UK are very wary of wild mushrooms. They basically avoid them because they don't have the knowledge, but I think they've lost it over the years. And so because UK is very much a melting pot, also there are people from Eastern Europe living there, moving there, and it turns out that those Eastern Europeans, they start foraging mushrooms in the UK forest, and to such an extent that they're being depleted. And so now the UK parks have to tell the public that foraging is no longer allowed. So in terms of knowledge of wild mushrooms, basically, I don't think we have a lot here in Singapore. If you don't know, you can find out a bit more from Mushroom Spotters SG and from the book that will be published later. But yeah, I guess there's no need to be immediately by default be wary of mushrooms in the wild.
It's a shame to hear about the formal education options, and so for that I think we're really grateful for the less formal channels, including Mushroom Spotters, through which we can learn a lot more about the world of fungi. I'm a bit conscious of time right now, so I thought maybe we could turn the conversation a bit towards mushrooms, and more specifically how they relate to the exhibition Refuse. There's some images here of the exhibition, and our question to the speakers that each of you were involved in the making of and production of Refuse to varying degrees. So we had consulted Yeng, to use images of Mushroom Spotters Singapore for our exhibition publication. And of course, Dr. Amy, you were consulted earlier on by both Sam and also the artists as they prepared for the exhibition. And of course, Kiat was indispensable to bringing this exhibition to life. So we wanted to ask what were some of your encounters with the exhibition, and perhaps some of the observations, the challenges, and maybe even surprises that you might have had working behind the scenes.
Shall I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we were one of the collaborators for the show, for the Observatory. So they were very kind to pretty much give us the space to create with mushrooms. Every single artwork grown had its own challenges. Already growing mushrooms is not very easy. So like getting them to take certain forms, certain shapes, basically asking to do what it wants to do, it's always a challenge. Through this process, we already found something quite interesting. So it's just full of surprises, you can't really put a finger on it. And I think this kind of what attracts me as a designer to work with this as a material, but it also attracts people from all walks of life. You can't really say like what kind of people likes mushrooms. I think the cool thing about mushrooms is that it is kind of like in between, like you can't really put a finger on it. So it naturally attracts people from all over the place. You can't put a finger on it. You get people from the fringes mostly interested in Singapore. So that has been my experience when I was giving workshops from home. I was getting a lot of people who were like me. I was meeting a lot of people who were like me, but as the business kind of grew, now I started meeting more and more business people. I also got to be more conscious of like all this patenting thing and stuff like that. Got to be hush about some things. Too commercially sensitive, cannot share. But yeah, I mean, it's a dilemma I'm kind of like have to face because ultimately still running a business, but it's quite a sad reality, because the thing about mushrooms is that it's really about education. Like the whole point about this is to share with people. And so with like the Facebook group Mushroom Spotters and through formal education, I think these are ways to really kind of bridge this gap lah. Yeah, but okay, so sorry for the exhibition. It was very testing in terms of trying to fit the tight timeline that we were given, because mushrooms kind of have their own schedule. You can kind of trick it to a certain extent to kind of make them grow a little bit slower, things like that. But end of the day, we had to deliver the artworks to Singapore Art Museum piece by piece. Yeah, it was quite challenging. Because it was quite a blind empty slate, like no one has actually really done this before at this scale. So I did a stupid thing of saying, yes, I'll do it. And then, yeah, but we did it. I think we did it. And through this experience, we learned many things about mushrooms. We met a lot of interesting people. We met the Observatory. That was maybe the highlight. Yeah, and now like, with the mushrooms kind of like trying to escape through the glass jars now, I know it's quite a worry for some people, but hey man, it's so interesting, like it's finding its way out. like everywhere else.
I know they do appear to have minds of their own, really.
Yeah,
just based on observing what is happening in the exhibition.
They're definitely able to sense all these things. Like I think when you guys were having a conversation earlier about how they were a lot more noisy in the morning because you guys just turn on the lights, and I think this is the reason. I think the lights play a very important role. Like mushrooms don't photosynthesize, but they're phototropic. They grow towards lights. But for example, when the observatory put some CO2 sensors into a bag of live mushrooms, and they pulse light at it, and the CO2 readings jump like 2 to 3-fold instantaneously. So that was really shocking for me. I never knew that they would react in such a way so quickly. Yeah, and I think like different species kind of react differently to light as well. I think when there are no cordyceps in the show, but when I was growing cordyceps, the light spectrum plays a very important role in making the mushroom produce the cordycepins. So yeah, there's a lot of new things to find out all the time. But yeah, the biggest challenge was the timeline. Very rushed. These things take time to grow. So we had like maybe 4 months, 4 to 5 months, 4.5 months to prepare to start growing things for the show. So it was interesting. Yeah. I can take questions for the show.
Thanks so much for sharing here. I think also because I'm conscious of the time and everybody's schedules as well. We just had one final question, maybe to round things off, and then maybe we can look through the Q&A function and perhaps answer some of the questions that have come in from the audiences as well. So I think this might be a twofold question, but something that I wanted to perhaps ask all the speakers was, given all of your extensive personal encounters with fungi and the ways in which, they've taught you so many things, what might be, the one thing you think an experience with fungi has changed your perspective on? And on that note also, then perhaps answering one of the questions that we've received is, what might be your favorite fungi as well?
Maybe I go first. Okay, so when I learned about mushrooms, the more I learn, the more fascinating it is, the more potential there are. So it's a bit like, people, right? Most of the time in an organization, the people who do a lot of the work, they are the ones behind the scenes. They are the ones who you don't see, they are not the frontliners. They are the ones who are behind the scenes, like the pyramid. They are usually, somewhere near the middle or the bottom. So for mushrooms, they are like that. They are like below the ground doing a lot of things, a lot of good, can be a lot of damage as well. But then they are really helping the planet, because even though the damage that they do, they are actually like opportunistic, I would say. The so-called disease that they harm another organism is because the organism is already weakened. So they are just hastening the process. So I would say from mushrooms, I learned to recognize the behind the scenes, to treasure people more, to look at things not just on the surface, not just on the the more charismatic ones, but also to look beyond and look at the other the small people. Yeah. Okay, someone else.
Okay. Maybe me very quickly. I think I've rambled a lot today, but I think it's more or less the same. For mushroom spotters, we were set up because I realized that there wasn't that much attention paid to fungi, but it's there. It's just that nobody really paid attention to it. And once you started to be aware of it, then you realize that there's more than one kind. There are ones that appear, in certain seasons. So once you are aware, you spend time, you get to know about it. There's a lot of depth about just this particular subject, which I think Amy and 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗏 will have a lot more to talk about. Yeah, I think it taught me to take things a bit slower. So you once you do things a bit more slowly, you're able to notice things that you might miss out if you're going at your usual pace. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree completely with you. I think like I'm a very impatient person by nature, and growing mushrooms have taught me to be more mindful with the processes involved, because cause and reaction, if you screw up in this part, everything else downstream is going to get wasted lah. So I think mushrooms through the cultivation process has taught me also about balance. Too much water cannot, too little water also cannot, too much effort also cannot, too little effort also cannot. Very fussy. So yeah, and I think I'm just very inquisitive by nature. So I like to understand I like to understand organisms, and so happens that I'm working with mushrooms, and it's nice to be able to understand that language and kind of unlock certain things. And when you have the key, it's amazing because there's just so many mushrooms out there, yeah, there's a lot of potential, I think, like what Dr. Amy has mentioned as well. And the more you dig, the deeper the hole is. There's just so much things you can do. My favorite mushroom would be, I like all the 𝗦𝗘𝗏𝗧 species, and they're just very fascinating to me. The way they grow is kind of alien-like, of course, I don't think they're aliens. I think we have been alienated to them. But what I like most about this group of mushrooms is that they're kind of pliable. You can really try to sculpt them in interesting ways, and that's where the design element comes into play. When I first started Builder, it was a bit difficult to explain to people what I was trying to do. But I think now that things are taking shape, I think people can start to see the picture already. But design is very important. I think there's design in the natural world, and basically understanding this language that is out there for us to, as human beings on Earth, we should spend time, we should take a step back from ourselves to understand our place on Earth. Yeah, and I think then this comes to the biggest lesson I've learned from mushrooms, is that it really connects everything together. And through this interconnectivity has taught me that we are not separate, we are not apart from, but we are a part of. So as cliche as it sounds, but it's like one love,
Thank you so much. I think really it's so interesting to hear from everybody's different perspective how fungi have been, I guess, eye-openers in one way or another throughout your journeys with them. And throughout this conversation, we've of course been talking so much about them, but we of course invite all of our audience members to come down to the Singapore Art Museum at Tanjong Pagar Distripark to listen to the fungi as well. So that's all the time we have for today. I'm so sorry that we didn't manage to get to all of the questions that we had in the Q&A function, but we tried our best to answer as many as we can. And on behalf of the entire Singapore Art Museum team, we'd like to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Our guests for today are 𝗙𝗦𝘍𝘕, Dr. Amy Choong, and 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦. And All About Mycology is a talk that was organized in conjunction with Refuse, an exhibition that's currently running at the Singapore Art Museum. The show will run until the 17th of April, 2022, and we would like to very much invite you to experience the exhibition for yourself. Thank you so much once again, and have a very good night.
Thank you so much, Yeng, Dr. Amy, and Kiat for today's talk. And thank you, Joella and 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦 for moderating the session. I really enjoyed learning about fungi or fungi, as well as the developments and the motivations of the mycophile community in Singapore, and also how it ties in with the exhibition. So All About Mycology is held in conjunction with Refuse, an intermediate exhibition about music, mushrooms, and decomposition presented by the Observatory. Do catch the exhibition by 17 April at Tanjong Pagar Distripark. We hope to see everyone there.